right, cool. So today, 5, 13, 21. Our objective is to graph trig equations, functions with a horizontal or a vertical shift. Okay? Now I gave us some little formulas to help us out to start off with. Okay? Now it's called a phase shift. That's just the scientific term. So anytime you move anything up or over, mostly the phase shift has to do with a horizontal, but it's basically doing a horizontal or vertical shift. In science, when you get into Mr. Massey's physics class, he's going to talk about a phase shift, okay? Because in physics, you're really going to talk about things like a sine wave, right? Tons of applications. So what we have is a general rule, okay? Y equals A trig, which is sine or cosine, okay? Trig, which is my sine or cosine. B is the frequency, right? X minus H. Now the minus is important. You know why this is a minus? You know why that's a minus. Tell me why that's a minus. Why is it's the opposite. Thank you, Spencer. I mean, does that seem obvious why it's got to be minus? Thank you. And then plus K. So we're going to take a trig graph today, and we're going to move it back and forth, and then maybe up and down, okay? Now, if you want to find B, which is the frequency, if you need to find B for the equation, you always take 2 pi divided by curve width, okay? Just like Spencer said, horizontal shift is the opposite, and a vertical shift is just up and down, okay? So, let's start with example 1. So I'm going to do 2 examples in 2 steps. So for me, I'm going to do it in 2 steps. First, I'm going to graph just y equals 3 sine of 2x. Okay, I'm just going to graph that. And then after I graph that one, then I'm going to shift it, okay? The period of this graph is going to be 2 pi divided by b. Okay, divided by b is going to be the period, okay, which in this case is 2 pi divided by 2, okay? You need to know that. We need to know what the period is because it helps me set up the axes, okay? So then I know that my period is going to be pi. That's my period. So when I graph it and put down my axes, I know that pi's got to be on there, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put this down. Let me get a pen, a ruler. And my ruler's right here. Okay, some things I know about it for sure. 3 and -3, because that's my amplitude, right? And I know that I've got to have pi in here, so I'm going to do what I did yesterday. I'll just kind of use the important parts of my unit circle. So I need my 0, pi halves, pi, 3 pi halves, and 2 pi. Okay, so I'm going to put those on my axes. So I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4. I like 4 squares. I like the 4 squares because these things have 4 quadrants. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. How am I doing? So I'm setting myself up. I knew that to graph this one, I had to have an amplitude of 3. So I went up to 3 and down to -3, right? I knew that I would have a period of pi. Got a period of pi. So I made sure that I had pi in there, and then I used the unit circle. Okay, now the next thing I'll do is I'm going to graph, and I'm going to do it in pencil because it's not going to be the answer, but just plain old 3 sine of 2x. Okay, now the sine curve we should know looks like this. That's a sine curve. We're going to put that shape between 0 and pi because my period is pi. So I'm going to take this shape, I'm going to put it here, right? I'm going to take this shape, put it between here and here with a height of 3, okay? So it's going to look like this. I'll do my dot to dot. Remember all my important dots, all my important pieces here. Starts at 0, ends at 0, halfway through it's a 0. Okay, it's going to be at pi fourths, it's going to be up there, and at 3 pi fourths, it's going to be down at -3, okay? So I'm going to take this shape and put it there, okay? So let me sketch it in. I'm going to put it in lightly because I'm going to move this. I'm going to actually move it, so put it in pencil, okay? Now I'm going to do another one, okay? Because there's 2 of them. The frequency says 2, so I'll do the exact same thing on this shape. This exact shape between pi and 2 pi, okay? So, all right, do my dot to dot. Starts at 0, ends at 0, halfway through it's at 0. 5 pi fourths is going to be up at 3, and 7 pi fourths is going to be down at -3, okay? So I sketch that in. Okay, there we go. Now, I have the curve, but now I need to move it, okay? Am I going too fast? Okay. Spencer, you taking notes. Somebody's taking notes. Are you okay? Faith, are you good?
Yeah.
Okay, nobody else taking notes, but that's okay. They're going to have to watch the film later. So now let's shift it. So we're going to shift. We're going to do a phase shift or a horizontal shift. Opposite. We're going to go to the right pi 8. Okay. And then we're going to go down 2. So let's see how that we're going to do that. So I know that this is pi fourths, because pi halves, right? Pi fourths, pi halves. So pi eighths is right there. Do you guys agree with that? If this is pi half, this is just the scales I put down. Pi halves, that's pi fourths, that's got to be pi eighths, okay? So I'm going to take each important point, and I'm going to move it pi eighths and down 2. So watch. Everybody watch. I want everybody to have eyes up here, okay? All eyes on the board, okay? Watch. Over pi eighths down 2. That point went over, this point went over pi eighths down 2. This maximum point went over pi eighths down 2, because 1 square is pi eighths, according to my scale. This point is going to go over pi eighths down 2. This point goes over pi eighths down 2. This point goes over pi eighths down 2. Over pi eighths down 2. Over pi eighths down 2. Over pi eighths and down 2, okay? And then my new curve would look something like this. There it is. So for me, the easiest way to do these is first graph the basic one without the shift, and then shift it. That's why I do it in 2 steps, okay? How am I doing? Thumbs up? All right? Good. Nina, you're just kind of watching along later, huh? Okay, now, let's take a look at example 2. So example 2, I think knowing the period is really important first. So the period is going to be, well, let's see, how do I find the period? The period is always 2 pi divided by b. The period is always 2 pi divided by b. Always 2 pi because that's the standard period. Now b is a frequency, which is this number here. Here's b. B is sitting right there, okay? So to find the period, I'm going to take 2 pi and divide by pi over 4. What? Well, I'm going to have to do a little fraction math. I'm going to have to do a little fraction. The same thing as 2 pi over 1 divided by pi over 4. Okay, I'm just rewriting this so I can just do a little fraction, magic fractions, or 2 pi over 1 times 4 over pi, right? I inverted and multiplied. Pi's cancel, and I get a period of 8. Okay. Now this is important in science. I'll tell you why this is important in science. When people do sine waves, oftentimes the length of the wave is in terms of time. Like 8 seconds. Well, or 8 like nanoseconds, right? More like 8 nanoseconds, okay? So you'll see in science equations, they'll normally have a pi here because that'll give you an answer. So when I do my graph, okay, when I do my graph, I'm going to go ahead and put my x, my y-axis down, okay. I know an amplitude of 2 and negative 2. Okay, everybody agree with that? There's my amplitude. And now instead of going, this is really important. Everybody listening. Everybody listen. Everybody listen. Okay, even Nina. Okay.
I'm doing it.
Oh, awesome. Thanks. Sometimes Nina, you're so stinking smart that you're like way ahead of me, which is okay.
But I've been doing it.
You are awesome, Nina. So instead of pi's, I'm not doing pi's. What am I going to do? I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So instead of pi's, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Not pi's, because the period is in terms of whole numbers. You with me? Give me a thumbs up on that. Does that make sense? So it changes my scale. Now it's not that hard from here. It really isn't. We're going to do then, I'm going to first graph a basic curve. I know cosine looks like this. That's a cosine curve. I'm going to graph y equals 2 cosine of pi force x first, okay? So I'm going to graph this shape between 0 and 8, right? I'm going to take this shape, graph between 0 and 8. That's pretty easy. I'll do my dot to dot. So it starts it up at 2, ends at 2. In the middle, it's down here. Okay, so here's my basic shape, dot to dot kind of thing. Here's my first one, right? And I can put more in if I wanted to, but I'm okay with that, okay? So I got this shape between 0 and 8. And now I'm going to move it. So I'm going to do my shift. So I'm going to shift back 1 or to the left, because like Spencer said, it's the opposite, right? Take the whole thing back 1, and then we're going to take everything and then go down 3. So every important point, and I think there's 5 important points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, the beginning, the end, the middle, and the 2 quarters. Okay, so take every important point. We're going to go left 1 and down 3. So I'm going to go 1, 1, 2, 3. Boom. 1, 1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 2, 3. Shift it up so you guys see what I'm doing. Take it over 1, back 1, 1, 2, 3. Take it back 1, 1, 2, 3. And my new curve is going to look like this. How's that? All right. Okay, so ready to this page, or am I going too fast? Okay. Okay, now, example 3. We want to find the equation. So again, real quickly, I'm going to put up our 2 graphs. We have either, because it's nice to know the general shape. This is a sine, and this is a cosine. It all depends on where you start, right? So the sine curve starts at 0. Like if you're getting on the roller coaster, you'd hop on the roller coaster and then go and take a ride, right? Cosine's like the water slides. You got to walk to the top of the water slides and then go down, okay? So when I take a look at example 3, it could be, you ready? It could be a cosine and you shift to here. It could be a sine, but you shift to here. It could be a negative cosine. All of these are correct. There are 4 different correct answers. Let's use the easiest. Do you see that one? Does that seem like the easiest one? That's a sine curve that's been shifted, right? So we know we're going to go y equals sine. The amplitude is, let's see, the amplitude is 1, 2, 3, right? The value of b, I don't know what the value of b is, but the value of b is going to be 2 pi divided by the width. Okay, so the value of b is 2 pi. Let's see, what's the width of this curve? So I'm going to go from pi 6 to 7 pi 6. Pi 6 to 7 pi 6. Which would be 7 6 minus pi 6, which is 6 6. So the width is really 6 6 pi. That's the same thing as pi, right? So the width is pi. So we take 2 pi divided by pi, okay? The width of this curve is pi, which makes the frequency 2. Now I shifted it. They like x instead of theta, so I'll put x like the x-axis. It got shifted. In fact, it got shifted pi 6 to the right, so minus pi 6. Here's my answer. You okay with that? Okay, example 4, almost done. All right. So, would you call, it depends on where you start. You can start anywhere. It's kind of hard to find the sign because it's kind of hard to find where it starts in here. Do you guys agree? It might start there. I'm not going to call it a sign because that looks like the base of the roller coaster right there. No, it's too hard to figure out what that is, right? But I could start here and call it a cosine. You okay with that? So I can start right here. I'm going to call it a cosine. Again, there's 4 correct answers. A sine, a cosine, there's a negative sine, there's a negative cosine, but let's just pick the easiest, okay? So I'm going to start y equals cosine, okay? What's my amplitude? Well, if I find the middle of this curve, right? Looks like the amplitude's a 1. Can you see that? I find the middle of that curve. I put the middle of the curve in green. Up 1, down 1. Except for the whole thing's been moved up, but the amplitude is 1. B, which is my frequency, is 2 pi divided by the width. It's always 2 pi divided by the width. All right, what's the width of this curve? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it goes from here to here. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the width is 6, okay? So my frequency is 2 pi divided by the width, which is 6, which is pi over 3. Now the entire curve has been shifted horizontally plus 1 unit, right? But we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to go parentheses, x, we have our x variable in there, minus 1. And the whole thing got shifted. In fact, if I look at the middle of the curve, see I've got the middle of the curve here? It got shifted up 1, 2. And there is my equation. All right? Okay. That's what I have.